All right, hello, and welcome to our second video talking about VC Economics Unit 3, Area Study 1, Microeconomics. Today, after talking about resources, relative scarcity, and opportunity costs in our last lesson, we're going to be talking about relative prices, perfect competition, as well as the 4 types of economic efficiency. This is probably going to be a little bit longer than the past video. We're going to get through it pretty quickly and clearly, because a lot of this you would have covered before. Some it's a little bit more streamlined for year 12 compared to year 11, which is pretty amazing for you. But all of it is pretty simple. So let's get right into it by looking at our key knowledge from VCAR and talking about what you need to know about it. So we're going to be a little bit all over the place with this. So first up, we're going to be talking about the nature of and conditions for a perfect competitive market. But then we are also going to be looking at the effect of competitive markets on resource allocation, as well as the different types of efficiency overall. So we're a little bit up and down. Oh, and one more thing. We're also looking at the role of relative prices in the market on resource allocation and the effect on living standards. So I think there's 4 little bits from random parts of the key knowledge, but personally I like to do them together because I feel like they interrelate a lot. And so therefore it makes sense to do them together, because a lot of stuff either side of them also goes together. So I don't know why they're separated like this. So if your textbook has them all over the place, well, that's not really my problem. But still, this way it makes more sense for them to go together. It makes more sense for a logical flow of notes, etc. So let's get into relative prices. Relative prices are the selling price of products relative to other products. So changes in relative prices send clear signals to producers and consumers, and therefore direct resources to their most profitable use. So for an example here, to talk about relative prices in general, if apples and oranges both have sale prices of $2, but the sale price of apples increased to $3, what would happen to production and what would happen to consumption? Well, if the selling price of apples goes up to $3, what are people going to do? Let's get a different color happening here. So what's going to happen is that businesses are going to stop producing oranges as much and move their resources into producing apples. Why are they going to do that? Well, they're now $3 a kilo each compared to $2 they were getting previously. So they're more relatively profitable in comparison to oranges. Therefore, they're going to produce them. So that's relative prices for production. Producers are going to produce which product is relatively more profitable for them. There is an assumption in relative prices that the products there's the same quantity of them, they're just as easy to produce, all those kind of things, they're relatively interchangeable. And for consumption, it's all about, well, from a consumer, what are you going to do? You're going to buy whichever is cheapest. So in this case, for consumption, if the relative price of apples has increased, you are going to move your demand towards oranges. It's better value. That's all about consumption. You're going to want to maximize your value to maximize your living standards. So that's going to be a little bit different. So suppliers, they want to put resources towards whichever is going to have the highest relative price because it's going to be more relatively profitable. Consumers are going to want to put their money towards whichever has the lowest price, as it is going to be marginally more beneficial for them. So the role of relative prices in allocating resources. So to give a specific definition, so relative prices are either the price of each input or factor of production or the final price of a particular good or service compared to one to another. Relative profits compare profits gained from producing one good in comparison to another. And since businesses are motivated by profit, they may end up moving resources from one industry, e.g. wool, to another, wheat, reflecting relative changes in profitability of one product against another. Because as a business, you want to maximize your profitability. If one product is no longer profitable, you're going to want to try and move your resources towards something that is going to be more profitable. You can see this just in general production all the time. Like you see products in the supermarkets being discontinued. Why are they being discontinued? Well, they're not going to be profitable for businesses. So they want to reallocate their resources towards whatever production is going to be more profitable and therefore maximize their profits to that. You can also see that through trends and fads, like a lot of resources get pushed towards certain things as they become popular because they are profitable, and as they no longer become profitable later on, resources move away from it. I used to always use the example of fidget spinners, where for like 1 week in 2017, fidget spinners were all the rage because they were helping everyone be less stressed, apparently. And so heaps of production went into them, and like shops were selling fidget spinners for $10 each, which meant they were incredibly profitable for businesses. And then after the fad died a week later, they were selling for like $1, and no one was producing them anymore. A more relevant recent example would be things like hand sanitizer. The price of hand sanitizer went up really high at the advent of lockdowns and COVID in 2020. A lot of businesses, a lot of alcohol producing businesses pivoted and reallocated their resources towards producing hand sanitizer because it was incredibly profitable at the time and incredibly easy for them to make. And therefore that was more relatively profitable, and they were going to produce that because of that. And that's how relative prices affected their resource allocation. Now we look at perfect markets. So in year 11, you would have looked at 4 types of market structures: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. We're going to look at one now. We look at perfect competition in year 12. That's it. That's all you need to know about. A market is seen as any type of arrangement that facilitates exchange between buyers and sellers. And the market structure that forms the basis of demand and supply diagrams, which we use, is called perfect competition. And it has 3 conditions that exist, and I'll probably add a 4th one too underneath. But the sellers are price takers, which means they have to just accept whatever price consumers are willing to pay for their goods or services. And part of the reason for that is for this 4th reason. I'll add in that there are many buyers and sellers. And so because of that, they have to accept whichever price buyers are willing to pay, because if you do not have the lowest price, they'll just go to the next person selling the same thing. Products are homogeneous. Homogeneous means essentially identical no matter who you buy them from. So identical, I'm doing that badly. Let's get rid of that. But they are essentially identical. So this ends up being a lot of like agricultural goods and services. So things like wheat, barley, fruit and vegetable, etc. They are identical. So like I always compare this to the Queen Victoria market. If you go to the Queen Victoria market and you want to buy bananas, and bananas are too expensive at one stall, well, it doesn't matter. You can just go buy bananas from another stall. Bananas are bananas if you're getting like Cavendish bananas. So that's fine. And then the last one is that there is ease of entry and exit, which means there are no barriers to entry in that market, meaning that people can start producing those goods and services relatively easily or change out of producing them if they are no longer profitable. It's very true of homogeneous products. So things like if you have a farm, you can very easily stop growing apples and start growing pears, or stop growing pears and start growing oranges, because you've got the lens, ease of entry and exit. If you grow them, you can sell them. And so that makes it relatively easy for people to be in that market. But these conditions need to exist for it to be perfect competition. And we're going to talk about the effects that that has. So in addition, perfect competitive markets is based on the following assumptions. So they assume that buyers and sellers operate with full information and make rational choices. Not always true. Sometimes buyers can be impulsive. You will learn about that in behavioral economics in year 11. In terms of year 12, we're talking about consumers as being relatively rational and act with full information. So we're going to do research to make sure that we are getting the best possible choice to maximize our resource allocation. We're also assuming that resources are mobile and will be reallocated to whatever is most beneficial, and that the buyer and seller aim to maximize profits and maximize utility. So the sellers want to do whatever is going to happen to get the most money for them, and we are going to do whatever it takes to get the most out of our money. So if you have $10, you are going to find the best deal for that $10. You're not just going to go to the first place and be like, yeah, that'll do. You're going to maximize your overall utility by finding the best deal. Now for the second part of this, we're going to talk about the nature and types of efficiency. The first type of efficiency, there's 4 that we're going to look at, is known as allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency will occur when the allocation of resources chosen maximizes society's well-being. So it may occur when markets are clear and there are no shortages or surpluses of certain goods and services. It also means that hopefully there are no overproduction of socially undesirable goods, so cigarettes, tobacco, alcohol, gambling, etc., and no underproduction of socially beneficial goods and services, so education, healthcare, etc. Technically, they say, like when we look at like a PPF diagram, which you don't specifically need to know about now, but if we have our production possibilities, any of these points along the outside when we are at our maximum capacity or our productive capacity is meant to be seen as allocatively efficient. But a better example, because you're always going to need to be able to give examples with these types of efficiencies, is that allocative efficiency, to achieve allocative efficiency, you can give an example of if more money is being allocated towards education, resource allocation is likely to be more allocatively efficient as it's going to improve society's living standards. Then next we have technical efficiency. This is the point of production occurring where productivity is at a maximum and average costs are at a minimum, and it's not possible to increase output without increasing inputs. So with this one, I always summarize this into what I think is a much simpler form, which is just least cost. Oh no, as I just randomly mash buttons on my fancy pen as I'm trying to do things. So least cost, max output. So they're the key parts of the definition. That's what you want for technical. Also sometimes known as productive efficiency. So those two words are interchangeable. I mean, called either, so be aware of that. But this is where it's not possible to increase production without increasing inputs. So you're doing things as efficiently as possible. Then the third type we've got is dynamic efficiency, which refers to how quickly an economy can reallocate to achieve allocative efficiency. So this is about businesses being able to adapt to society's changing needs and wants. So the example here, if society moves from demanding coal power to wanting solar energy, that would be dynamically efficient because businesses would move resources away from producing coal power towards producing solar energy, and that would be showing that we're increasing our dynamic efficiency. And the last one is intertemporal efficiency, which focuses on balancing the allocation of resources between time periods. So basically it's the balance between now and the future. So now and future. So making sure that we have enough to satisfy our needs and wants now, but we also have enough left for future generations. So economists are increasingly concerned about how resources are managed, not only for now, but whether they will be able to satisfy the needs and wants of future generations. So there are some issues occurring at the moment where the government's focused on like clean coal or gas-fired energy, but these are going to use natural resources that are non-renewable and we have finite amounts of. So if you look at coal, we've only got enough for a certain amount of years left. And if we use that, there will be none left. So intertemporal efficiency looks at balancing the allocation of resources so that we have enough for now, but there will also be more in the future. So examples of this could be pushing towards using more renewable energy sources, and then there will be more resources available left for future generations. All right, so that's been it for this second video or second lesson of Unit 1 Area Study 1 and Unit 3 Area Study 1. Next time we're going to start looking at the law of demand just on its own, and then after that we're going to start looking at the law of supply, equilibriums, elasticity, etc. So for the next chunk of time, the next 4 lessons, we're going to be looking at supply, demand, equilibriums, and elasticity. If you have any questions about this stuff, which has just been straight up theory, hit me up. I'm more than happy to help you out. Leave a comment, whatever is good for you. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.